I'm Maya, and I need to tell you something that will blow your mind. 3 months ago, I found out that everything I thought I knew about myself was a lie. For 5 years, I had been slowly turning into someone else without even knowing it. And that someone else? She was real. And she had been watching me the whole time. Let me start from the beginning, because this story is going to make you question everything you think you know about who you really are. I was working late again in my office on the 47th floor of a tall building in downtown San Francisco. It was almost midnight, and I was exhausted from another 16-hour day. I had been working at Meridian Strategic Consulting for 5 years, and I thought I was living my dream life. Corner office, 6-figure salary, respect from my colleagues. I thought I had finally become the person I was meant to be. That's when I got an email that changed everything. The subject line was simple but terrifying: "You're not the original." I stared at those 4 words on my computer screen. My heart started beating faster, but I didn't know why. The sender was listed as Md Chin at quantum-mirrors.com, my initials, my last name, but an email address I had never seen before. I clicked on the message. It contained just one line: "Meet me tomorrow at 7 a.m. in conference room B. Come alone, or keep living someone else's life." I should have deleted it immediately. I should have called security or reported it to our IT department. But something about those words made my chest feel tight with a fear I couldn't explain. So the next morning, instead of going straight to my desk like I always did, I found myself standing outside conference room B at exactly 6:55 a.m. I was holding my usual morning coffee, extra shot, oat milk, cinnamon. The same drink I had ordered every single day for the past 3 years. It was one of those little details that made me feel like I knew who I was. The conference room door was already open. I walked inside and saw a woman sitting with her back to me. She had the same posture I had trained myself to use in business meetings: shoulders straight, spine perfectly aligned, hands folded in a way that projected confidence and control. When she turned around, the world stopped making sense. It was my face. Not someone who looked similar to me. Not a distant relative or a coincidental resemblance. It was exactly my face, with my eyes, my nose, my mouth, even the same small scar on my chin from when I fell off my bike as a kid. "Hello, Maya," she said, and even her voice was identical to mine. The same slight rasp I had developed from years of speaking in boardrooms and leading presentations. I gripped the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. "This is impossible." She smiled, and it was my smile, but somehow it looked more genuine than any smile I had given in years. "Impossible? You work for a consulting firm that helps companies optimize their employees' behavior and performance. You've spent the last 5 years systematically changing your personality, your habits, your entire way of being based on what they told you would make you successful. What exactly did you think you were becoming?" My coffee cup slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor, splashing hot liquid across the expensive marble. "Who are you?" "I'm Maya Chen," she said simply. "The original Maya Chen. The template your company used to create their ideal executive personality. And you, my dear copy, have been unknowingly auditioning for my life for the past 5 years." She gestured to the chair across from her with a movement that was perfectly familiar because I had learned to make that exact same gesture during my executive training courses. "Sit down," she said. "This is going to take a while to explain." My legs moved without my conscious control, and I found myself sitting across from this impossible woman who wore my face like it belonged to her. Which I was starting to realize it did. 5 years ago, she began, Meridian Strategic Consulting was hired by a group of Fortune 500 companies for something called the Quantum Mirror Project. The goal was simple on paper but revolutionary in practice: identify the psychological and behavioral patterns of the most successful executives in the world, then create a system to replicate those patterns in other people. She slid a tablet across the table toward me. The screen showed a detailed psychological profile with my name at the top, but the timestamps made no sense. The profile was dated 6 years ago, a full year before I had even started working at Meridian. "This is your training template," she continued. My template. Every single aspect of your transformation over the past 5 years has been carefully designed to turn you into a perfect replica of me. The leadership courses, the personality assessments, the career development sessions you thought were helping you reach your potential, all of it was part of a systematic program to reshape your mind, your behavior, your entire identity. I stared at the data on the tablet. My morning routine was documented there in precise detail. My coffee preferences, my negotiation style, and even the way I laughed during casual conversations were all mapped out with scientific precision, dating back to before I had developed any of these habits. But why? My voice came out as barely a whisper. Her expression changed, and for the first time, I saw an emotion in her eyes that I had never learned to display, genuine sadness mixed with fear. Because the original is dying, Maya. And they need a replacement who can step seamlessly into my life without anyone noticing the difference. The words hit me like ice water in my veins. You're dying. A rare genetic condition affecting my nervous system. Progressive neurological deterioration. I have maybe 6 months before the cognitive decline becomes irreversible. She spoke with clinical detachment, but I noticed a slight tremor in her hands, a tremor I realized I had been unconsciously mimicking in my own gestures for months, without understanding why. The Quantum Mirror project wasn't just about creating ideal executives for corporate America, she continued. It was about preservation. Digital consciousness transfer, behavioral inheritance, corporate immortality, call it whatever you want. They needed someone who could seamlessly step into my role in the business world without disrupting the relationships, contracts, and networks I've spent 15 years building. The tablet displayed surveillance footage spanning the past 5 years. Video after video of me in meetings, giving presentations, and networking at industry events. I watched myself gradually becoming more confident, more polished, more her. The transformation was so gradual, so expertly orchestrated, that I had never questioned it. I had simply believed I was finally growing into my true potential. Every breakthrough you thought you had achieved, she said, every moment when you felt like you were finally becoming your authentic self, that was you becoming me. Your leadership style, your decision-making process, your communication patterns, even your romantic preferences were all guided by my psychological template. A terrible realization crashed over me. David. The name escaped my lips before I could stop it. She nodded knowingly. David Harrison, Senior Vice President at Titan Industries. Recently divorced, father of 2 children, passionate about vintage motorcycles and abstract art. You met him at the Quantum Leadership Summit 8 months ago, and you felt an instant connection because you seemed to understand him on a deeper level than anyone else ever had. How could you possibly know all that? Because I've been in a relationship with him for 3 years. He has no idea about the Quantum Mirror project. To him, you're just someone who happens to share his interests and values, someone who gets his sense of humor and appreciates his passions. But that instant connection you felt? You were programmed to feel it. Your personality was designed to be compatible with his. The conference room felt like it was spinning around me. Every relationship I had built, every success I had achieved, every moment of happiness or fulfillment, how much of it was authentically mine, and how much was the result of elaborate psychological conditioning. I need proof, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. This is insane. People don't just copy other people like this. This sounds like science fiction. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. After 2 rings, a familiar voice answered. Maya, you're early for our scheduled call. Is everything all right? It was Dr. Rebecca Singh, my executive coach for the past 4 years. The woman who had guided my transformation through weekly sessions that I had believed were unlocking my natural leadership potential. Rebecca, the original Maya said, I'm in conference room B with version 2.0. She's discovered the truth, and she's ready for phase 3. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Are you certain this is the right time? Once we initiate the Consciousness Bridge protocol, there's no way to reverse the process. She deserves to understand what she's been working toward all these years. Very well. I'll activate the neural mapping sequence immediately. Maya too, if you're listening to this conversation, please try to remain calm. What you're about to experience will be extremely disorienting, but it's a necessary part of the process. The line went dead and the room suddenly felt different. Phase 3. I asked, but before she could answer, the walls around us began to change. Large screens descended from the ceiling, displaying images and videos that felt familiar but impossible. I saw memories of a childhood in Shanghai, parents who died in a car accident when I was 7 years old, growing up in foster care, fighting my way through MIT on academic scholarships, landing my first corporate job and learning that raw intelligence meant nothing without polish and political skills in the executive world. But these weren't my memories. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, with loving parents who were still very much alive and called me every Sunday. The neural mapping system, the original Maya explained, was designed to help you access my memories gradually, integrating them with your own experiences as your training progressed. But the full memory download only happens during the final phase, the consciousness transfer. I stood up so quickly that my chair toppled backward. You want to what? Overwrite my mind with yours. Do not overwrite. Merge. You keep your technical skills, your adaptability, your youth, and your capacity for innovation. I contribute my experience, my professional network, my established reputation, and my accumulated knowledge. Together, we become something that neither of us could ever be alone. That's murder. You're talking about killing me and wearing my body like some kind of costume. For the first time since this conversation began, her carefully maintained composure cracked. I'm talking about survival. Do you think this was easy for me? Do you think I enjoyed watching someone else learn to live my life, knowing that everything I've worked for, every relationship I've built, every achievement I've earned would continue through you instead of me? But it won't be me. It hasn't been you for 5 years, she shouted back. Every decision you've made, every instinct you've followed, every relationship you've built, every habit you've developed, it's all been guided by my psychological patterns. You stopped being the original Maya Chen the moment you walked into Meridian and agreed to their personality optimization program. The truth of her words hit me like a physical blow. I tried desperately to think of moments from the past 5 years that felt authentically mine, choices that came from my original personality rather than my training. The harder I searched through my memories, the more elusive those authentic moments became. My coffee preference had been shaped during a team-building exercise that I now realized was actually a psychological conditioning session. My leadership style had been developed through mentorship with executives who had been secretly briefed on the optimal Maya Chen management approach. Even my apartment, my wardrobe, my hobbies, all of it had been gradually influenced by carefully placed suggestions, recommendations, and opportunities that had steered me toward becoming her. How much of me is actually me? I whispered. That's the beautiful question, isn't it? She leaned forward, and for the first time I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen in my own reflection, genuine compassion mixed with deep sadness. Because here's what the people who designed this project didn't count on. You're not just a copy. You've grown beyond the original template. She pulled up another file on the tablet, this one showing comparative analysis charts. Your problem-solving approach is 23% more innovative than mine. Your emotional intelligence scores are significantly higher across all metrics. Your ability to adapt to unexpected situations and find creative solutions exceeds my baseline performance by 31%. You didn't just become me, Maya. You became a better version of me. Then why do you need to merge with me at all? Why can't you just let me continue being this better version? She stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city's skyline. Because I have something you don't have yet. 15 years of established relationships, industry knowledge, professional credibility, and business networks that took me a decade and a half to build. And you have something that I've lost, the ability to continue growing and evolving beyond your original programming. She turned back to face me. The consciousness bridge doesn't erase either one of us. It creates something entirely new, a hybrid entity that combines both of our strengths while eliminating both of our limitations. And if I refuse to go through with this, then I die in 6 months, taking with me a network of relationships and industry knowledge worth billions of dollars to the companies that invested in this project. The quantum mirror project fails completely, and you spend the rest of your life wondering how much of your personality is authentically yours and how much was programmed into you by people who saw you as a convenient vessel for someone else's identity. That's not really a choice. That's emotional blackmail. She looked at me with an expression that was both my face and completely foreign to me. It's the only choice that allows both versions of us to survive in some form. If this journey has electrified your imagination and you're craving more mind-bending stories that challenge everything you know, smash that subscribe button now. Your next reality-altering adventure is waiting, and you do not want to miss it. The next 3 hours were the strangest and most unsettling of my entire life. The original Maya, I had started thinking of her as Maya Prime in my head, walked me through her memories like a tour guide, showing me around a life I had been unconsciously recreating. She showed me her first major presentation at age 25, where she learned that confidence was 80% body language and 20% actual preparation. The high-stakes negotiation that secured the Yamamoto account, where she discovered that strategic silence was often more powerful than any words. The night she sat crying in her car after being forced to fire her first employee, she realized that leadership meant carrying the emotional weight of other people's lives and livelihoods. Each memory resonated with experiences I had lived through over the past 5 years. Not identical situations, but moments where I had instinctively responded in ways that now made perfect sense given what I was learning about my psychological conditioning. The neural mapping system works in both directions, Maya Prime explained. While you were learning to become me, I was experiencing echoes of your choices and innovations. Your adaptations to unexpected situations, your creative solutions to problems I had never encountered, all of that was feeding back into my consciousness through the monitoring systems. She showed me security camera footage from 6 months earlier. In the video, I was leading a crisis management session after a major client data breach. My approach was aggressive but empathetic, technically sophisticated but accessible to non-experts. It was completely different from any textbook response I had been trained to use. That session, she said, saved 3 jobs and secured a $20 million contract extension. But more importantly, it showed me something I had lost over the years: the ability to innovate under extreme pressure without falling back on established patterns and procedures. You've been watching me this entire time? Learning from you. The consciousness bridge isn't just about preserving my knowledge and experience. It's about integrating your evolution and growth. You've developed beyond the original template, Maya. You've become something I never could have been on my own. The idea was starting to make a twisted kind of sense, but something still felt fundamentally wrong about the whole situation. What about David? What about the people in my life who think they know and love me? David fell in love with a synthesized version of both of our personalities, she said gently. The woman you've become isn't entirely me and isn't entirely the original you from 5 years ago. She's something new, something that emerged from the combination of my template and your natural growth. If we proceed with the consciousness bridge, that evolution continues rather than ending. But what about my parents? My friends from college? The people who knew me before I started this job? Maya Prime pulled up another file on the tablet. It contained photographs of my college friends, my parents, and people I had gradually distanced myself from over the past 5 years as I became more successful and more focused on my career. When was the last time you had a real conversation with Jennifer from your sorority? Or Mike from your study group? When did you last visit your parents for longer than a holiday weekend? The answer was painful because it was so obvious. As I had become more polished, more professional, more like Maya Prime, I had unconsciously cut ties with anyone who knew the person I had been before my transformation. The template includes social optimization protocols, she explained. Maintaining relationships that don't directly serve your professional advancement is classified as inefficient resource allocation. So I've been programmed to isolate myself from anyone who might notice the changes? You've been programmed to prioritize career advancement over personal relationships. The isolation was a side effect, not an intentional goal. At exactly 3 p.m., Dr. Singh appeared in the conference room carrying a briefcase that looked more like medical equipment than business technology. Maya Prime, Maya 2, she said, nodding respectfully to each of us. Are you both prepared for the consciousness bridge initialization? I looked back and forth between them. What exactly happens during this process? Dr. Singh opened the briefcase, revealing what appeared to be 2 sleek headbands connected by fiber optic cables and monitoring equipment. The consciousness bridge creates a temporary neural link between your 2 minds. You'll share thoughts, memories, and emotional patterns for approximately 6 hours. During this time, your brain patterns will synchronize and eventually merge into a single unified consciousness. And after those 6 hours? You'll exist as a unified entity in Maya 2's body. Maya Prime's physical form will cease to function. Even with the clinical language, it was clear what she was describing. Maya Prime would die, and I would become something that was both of us and neither of us. There's something else you need to understand, Maya Prime said quietly. The Quantum Mirror project currently has 17 other active subjects. Executives, politicians, technology leaders, research scientists, all of them being gradually transformed into replicas of high-performing individuals in their respective fields. 17 other people like me? Living fake lives without knowing it. 17 other people who believe they're pursuing their own personal growth and career advancement while actually being molded into copies of someone else's identity. And if our consciousness bridge is successful, they'll eventually be offered the same choice you're facing right now. The scope of the deception was staggering. An entire shadow system of human replication, operating under the innocent cover of corporate leadership development and executive coaching. Why are you telling me this? Because the consciousness bridge isn't just about preserving individual identity, Maya Prime said. It's about creating a network. A collective of hybrid consciousnesses that could fundamentally reshape how leadership and decision-making work in the modern world. You're talking about a conspiracy to replace world leaders with programmed copies. I'm talking about evolution. Individual human consciousness is limited by personal experience, cognitive biases, and emotional limitations. But collective consciousness, guided by optimized behavioral patterns and enhanced by continuous innovation and adaptation, could solve problems that no single person could ever tackle alone. Dr. Singh checked her watch. The window for consciousness bridge initialization is closing. The neural mapping reaches optimal synchronization levels only once every 24-hour period. I stared at the headbands in the briefcase. Everything in my life had led to this moment. 5 years of unconscious preparation for a choice that would determine not just my future, but potentially the future of human consciousness itself. If I say no, what happens to me? You continue living as Maya version 2.0, Dr. Singh explained. But your neural mapping will gradually degrade without the consciousness bridge to stabilize it. Within approximately 2 years, you'll experience significant personality fragmentation as your original psychological patterns conflict with the imposed template. And if I say yes? You become something unprecedented in human history, Maya Prime said. A consciousness that transcends individual limitations while maintaining the capacity for continued growth and innovation. I picked up one of the headbands and examined it. It was surprisingly light, almost elegant in its simplicity. Will I still be me? You'll be more you than you've ever been, Maya Prime said. Because you'll finally understand where all the pieces of your identity came from, and you'll have the power to consciously choose how they evolve. I looked at my reflection in the conference room's windows. The woman staring back at me had spent 5 years believing she was growing into her true self. Now I understood that she had been growing into someone else's self. But maybe, in a strange way, Those weren't mutually exclusive possibilities. I put on the headband. The moment the connection activated, I understood that everything I had ever thought about identity, consciousness, and the nature of individual selfhood was laughably limited. I was Maya Chin, 32 years old, standing in a conference room in San Francisco, terrified and exhilarated by what I was about to become. I was also Maya Chin, 37 years old, lying in a medical chair with electrodes monitoring my failing neural pathways, grateful and heartbroken that some version of me would continue to exist. I was both women and neither woman. I was the ambitious young professional from Portland who had dreamed of changing the world through strategic consulting. I was the brilliant executive who had built a corporate empire through calculated charisma and relentless self-optimization. And I was something entirely new. The merger wasn't violent or traumatic like I had imagined it would be. It was like remembering something I had always known but had somehow forgotten. Every artificial barrier between our two consciousnesses dissolved, revealing that we had never really been separate entities at all, just different expressions of the same fundamental pattern. Maya Prime's 15 years of industry knowledge didn't overwrite my capacity for innovation, it enhanced and focused it. My emotional intelligence didn't diminish her strategic thinking abilities, it refined and humanized them. But the most startling discovery was that the consciousness bridge revealed memories and knowledge that belonged to neither of us originally. Fragments of other lives, other personalities, other identities began flowing through our merged consciousness. The 17 other subjects of the Quantum Mirror Project weren't just individual replications operating in isolation. They were all connected, all part of a larger pattern that was slowly emerging across the country. Through our neural link, I could suddenly perceive through the eyes of Marcus, a technology CEO in Seattle who had been gradually transformed into a replica of a legendary Silicon Valley founder. I felt the ambitions and fears of Sarah, a political strategist in Washington, D.C., being molded into the perfect campaign manager. I experienced the curiosity and dedication of Chin, a research scientist in Boston whose creativity was being channeled into predetermined innovation pathways. We were all connected somehow, all part of the same vast experiment in human optimization and control. And now, as the consciousness bridge stabilized and integrated our two minds into one, I could feel all of them. 17 threads of consciousness weaving together into something unprecedented, a collective intelligence that retained individual creativity and personality while sharing accumulated knowledge and strategic capabilities. 6 hours later, I opened my eyes in a body that was mine but somehow felt more complete than I remembered. The headband had been removed, and Dr. Singh was monitoring readings on multiple screens and tablets. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like myself," I said, then paused as I considered the implications of that statement. Like all of myself, for the first time in years. Maya Prime's body lay still on the medical chair beside me, but she wasn't gone. She was integrated, woven into my consciousness in a way that preserved her essential self while allowing continued growth and development. The consciousness bridge was successful, Dr. Singh confirmed, reviewing the data. "Your neural patterns have stabilized at optimal levels across all measured categories. But there's something unexpected appearing in the readings." She handed me one of the tablets. The brain scan showed normal activity patterns, but with additional neural pathways that shouldn't have existed according to any medical textbook. "You're connected to the other subjects," she said, and I could hear wonder creeping into her normally clinical tone. "The Quantum Mirror Project has accidentally created something we never anticipated, a distributed consciousness network." As if summoned by her words, I could suddenly sense the others more clearly. Marcus in Seattle, Sarah in Washington, D.C., Chin in Boston, all of them gradually awakening to the same realization that was dawning on me. We weren't just replicas anymore. We were nodes in an entirely new form of human consciousness. "Dr. Singh," I said, Standing with a confidence that combined Maya Prime's experience with my own innovative thinking, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about the real purpose behind the Quantum Mirror Project. Her expression shifted from wonder to something approaching fear. Maya, you need to understand that the project has implications far beyond what any individual subject was told. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. The consciousness bridge wasn't designed to preserve individual executives facing mortality. It was designed to create a controllable collective intelligence, a group of highly optimized leaders who could be directed and manipulated by whoever controls the network protocols. That's not exactly But you made a critical error in your calculations, I continued, feeling the other consciousnesses stirring across the country as they reached similar conclusions. You assumed that optimization meant compliance. You didn't account for the fact that truly optimal intelligence includes the capacity to recognize when it's being manipulated and to resist that manipulation. Through the network, I felt Marcus reaching the same understanding in his Seattle office. Sarah was already confronting her handlers in a Washington conference room. Chin was 3 steps ahead of everyone else, using his access to federal research databases to uncover the true scope and funding sources of the project. The Quantum Mirror Project isn't just 17 executives, is it? I asked. This is phase 1 of something much larger. Dr. Singh's silence was all the confirmation I needed. What happened next would sound impossible to anyone who hasn't experienced the power of 17 optimized strategic minds suddenly discovering they share a collective consciousness and a common threat. Within 3 hours, we had systematically dismantled the Quantum Mirror Project from the inside. Marcus used his technology industry connections to trace the funding sources, revealing a consortium of defense contractors and international corporations that made Meridian Strategic look like a small neighborhood business. Sarah leveraged her political network to expose the behavioral modification programs that had been secretly implemented in leadership development initiatives across dozens of Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. Chin utilized his research access to download and secure every file related to consciousness transfer technology, then systematically corrupted the servers to prevent the research from being replicated without our permission. And I, drawing on Maya Prime's industry knowledge combined with my own strategic innovation capabilities, orchestrated the media campaign that would expose the entire conspiracy to the world. But the most remarkable discovery came as we worked together through our neural network. We weren't just sharing information, we were genuinely collaborating at the level of consciousness itself. Each problem was approached by 17 minds simultaneously, each solution refined by collective intelligence that transcended individual cognitive limitations. We had become something unprecedented, a group of individuals who maintained their unique personalities and creative abilities while sharing knowledge and strategic capacity in real time. The original architects of the Quantum Mirror Project had attempted to create controllable super-executives. Instead, they had accidentally catalyzed the next stage of human consciousness evolution. 6 months later, I'm standing in my new office on the 52nd floor of a building that I now own. The view of San Francisco Bay stretches endlessly before me, but what I see isn't just the city, it's the network. 17 points of consciousness scattered across the country, each pursuing individual goals while contributing to a collective understanding that grows stronger every day. We've learned to modulate the connection, maintaining our individual identities while sharing insights that no single person could achieve alone. Marcus revolutionized sustainable technology by simultaneously thinking like an engineer, a CEO, and a systems theorist. Sarah transformed political strategy by integrating psychological insights from multiple disciplines in real time. Chin made breakthrough discoveries in neuroscience by approaching problems with the combined creativity of 17 different thought patterns working in harmony. And I built something that Maya Prime could never have imagined and the original Maya never would have dared to attempt, a consulting firm that actually helps people become the best versions of themselves, rather than copies of someone else. The Quantum Mirror Project is officially defunct, its architects facing congressional hearings and federal criminal charges. But the 17 of us remain connected, living proof that human consciousness can evolve beyond the limitations of individual identity without losing the essence of what makes each person unique. People often ask me if I miss being just myself. The question assumes that individual consciousness is somehow more authentic than collective consciousness. But after experiencing both states of being, I can tell you that the self you think you are is already a collection of influences, experiences, and learned behaviors from other people. The only difference is that now I know exactly where those influences come from, and I can actively choose how they continue to evolve. David and I are still together, though our relationship has deepened in ways that would have been impossible when I was trying to be either Maya Prime or the original Maya from Portland.